Say good evening.
Good evening, Riviera Beach. I want to welcome you to the Unify 2015 Local Candidate Election Forum. I am one of the organizers, part of the election committee for Unify, and I'm Dr. DeAndre Poole alongside former Councilwoman, the Honorable Vanessa Lee of Riviera Beach. And we want to begin by first thanking you all for your involvement in the civic process. This is your responsibility as citizens. It's your responsibility for our democracy. And we are pleased and we want to share with you information about Unify and what Unify is all about. Unify is a community-based coalition of diverse groups of individuals and organizations focused on justice and equality and equity for Black people in Palm Beach County. We will stand with our allies lending on justice and equity. We will lend our voices, our actions, and resources to build a better county. And we know that the power is in the people.
Unify also, part of the platform is strengthening our neighborhoods. Safe, clean, and robust neighborhoods in our city empowers communities, offers long-term stability, and advances overall quality of life.
And economic prosperity for all is another one of the things that we believe in. Equity is no longer only a moral imperative, it is also an economic one. We need to create equal opportunities for all residents to progress, compete in the global economy, and become economically self-sufficient.
Unify also believes that our children shape our future. We should view quality education as creating the community and not serving the community. We can do better at investing in our youth to understand social responsibility and to be active, contributing citizens of our community.
And Unify also believes that we are government. Residents have the intelligence, creativity, and community spirit to change how local government works. Our government should encourage citizen engagement in all decision-making processes and always welcome meaningful input from those who provide and receives its services.
Unify also supports accountability. Integrity, transparency, and accessibility are essential for effective governing and ensuring our community's needs are being met. We deserve policymakers who are held to the highest standards and are responsive to issues important to all their constituents.
And Unify is also committed to economic justice. We are working to ensure that affected residents share the benefit of any development or redevelopment initiatives, and that publicly subsidized projects effectively address community needs by creating jobs and job training opportunities.
Another one of Unify's election platforms are removing barriers to employment. There are an estimated 65 million Americans, 1 in 4 adults, with a criminal history that may show up on a routine background check report. Ban-the-box policies seek to remove these barriers to employment that are preventing people from living and working productively.
And Unify is also committed to our community schools. Research clearly indicates a disparity in economic achievement with respect to race, family, wealth, and gender. Together, we hope to build an effective strategy for educating all children to reach their full potential.
And lastly, Unify also believes that law enforcement believes in law enforcement and crime prevention reform. We are forming an independent civilian review committee that will evaluate and provide meaningful input in policy and program development, accountability, and resource allocation.
And we also want to thank our coalition partners, Coalition for Black Student Achievement, SEIU, the Urban League of Palm Beach County, the NAACP, Palm Beach County Chapter, and the Black Village Voice. And we also want to thank our other committee members as well, Tanzia Jackson, Chuck Ridley, Alex Ring, and James Green for their contributions to tonight's event. And before we introduce our moderator, we want to also remind you that this event is being televised, and we want to make sure we maintain decorum and to make sure that all questions, the questions that will be asked of each candidate, that they will have time to respond, and we will ask you to hold applause until the end of tonight's forum. With that, Vanessa, would you introduce the moderator, please?
Yes. Our moderator for this evening is Attorney Bradley G. Harper, a seasoned civil litigator with over 10 years' experience. He is homegrown. He was raised in Riviera Beach. He was educated in Riviera Beach. He's a Morehouse graduate. He is a distinguished attorney. He's heavily involved in Riviera Beach and has a lot of strong advocates for the community, and he's also a very good family man. And with that, we'll introduce Mr. Bradley Harper, who will go over the rules and bring up the candidates. Let's give him a hand.
All right, good evening. Vanessa, thank you for the wonderful introduction. And thank you all for having this debate, and thank you for everyone who's attending, and especially for our candidates who had the courage to stand up and say that they want to represent our community and our incumbent, of course, for the work that she's done in the community. Let me start by going over the rules of the debate. I'm going to ask the candidates to please go ahead and step up to the podium. Councilwoman Judy Davis and Ms. Kashamba Miller. Let's definitely give them a hand. All right, as they come up, this will be a debate-style format. Our first section will allow the candidates to introduce themselves and conduct their opening statements. I then have some questions that have been prepared by a committee with the joint organizations of Unify, which we will ask. The candidates will have 2 minutes apiece to respond to the questions. Okay. There are cards for the audience to ask questions. So if you're an audience member and you want to ask a question during this debate, there will be a section for your questions. There are cards right here where this young man is standing. You can get your cards now. I would suggest that if you know what you want to ask, go ahead and complete your question now. Turn it in. The committee at the table is going to review the questions, and they'll hand the questions which they deem to be appropriate to me, okay? After the audience question block, we'll have a closing segment and a sponsor review. With that, I'll again say thank you to my candidates and ask them to begin, starting with Councilwoman Davis with their introductions and opening statements. Before you start, I apologize. There is a timer for the camera, the audience, and the candidates. When you have 30 seconds left, Ms. Lee will hold up a card, 30 seconds. When you have 10 seconds left, she will hold up a card indicating you have 10 seconds left. And when your time has expired, we would ask you to promptly conclude your remarks, okay? Thank you. Councilwoman Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Judy Davis. And first, I'd like to thank the Unify organization for hosting this event, along with all of its sponsors. I really appreciate you taking the time out to do this for the benefit of our residents. I have served on the City Council for the past 7 years. I also had 2 additional years serving from 2004 to 2006. I am a 32-year retiree from the Palm Beach County School District. I am a Navy veteran. I am divorced, and I have one daughter. I'm running for re-election because I lived in the city of Riviera Beach for 14 years and saw no improvements happening whatsoever. So I decided to get involved. And fortunate for me, I ran into a former elected official, Mrs. Sylvia Blue, who was ready to step down and started attending the meetings. And I'm happy to say that these past 7 years you have seen the progress of the work that we have done in Riviera Beach. You see that our streets were cleaner, and a lot of progress is being made. Our marina is under development, and we're providing jobs to people. So I am enjoying what I'm doing and hope to come back soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Davis. Ms. Miller, your introduction and opening statement.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'd like to thank the Unified Group for allowing me to come and be able to speak before you all. As you know, this is my first time running for any political office. I am Kashampa Miller. I was born and raised in Riviera Beach. I've lived here all of my life. I was raised in the Monroe Heights area. And at the age of 24, I did purchase my first home, which I currently still live in, just a few blocks from here. I went to school at John F. Kennedy Junior High School, and I went on to Suncoast High School, where I graduated in the class of '91. I'm very proud of that, and I continued my education at Palm Beach Atlantic. Before doing that, I did receive my AA degree at Palm Beach Community College, and I received my BS degree from Palm Beach Atlantic in the field of education. I received my master's degree from Nova Southeastern in educational leadership. So I've been a teacher and worked for the school district of Palm Beach County for over 15 years. I'm currently an assistant principal. I also have a small business, construction company, J.D. Anderson Construction, and it's a very small business, but we started and it's based here in Riviera Beach, and it's been established for about 5 years now. I am the mother of 2 sons, they were both grown, so I can't say they're little boys anymore. Hard for me to say that, but one has already graduated college. He went away to college, he came back, and we're trying to make sure that he's able to give back to his community as his mother and father are. And our youngest is in college at this time, studying to be a firefighter. Again, I'm running because there are some things I've seen that are really going well, you know. However, there are some things that can stand some improvement. I'm running on the platform of professionalism, being able to provide accountability, and just being transparent. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We will now proceed to our first round of questions. I'll start by posing a question to the candidates. You will each have 2 minutes to respond. Now, what I'm going to try to do is rotate so that no person goes, one person goes first and then another. If for some reason I forget to do that, just give me a nod and a wink or something. It's not intentional, all right? We'll make up for it. We want to make sure that this is fair and impartial toward both candidates. Our first question is this. We'll start with Councilwoman Davis. What do you feel are the 3 main issues facing the city of Riviera Beach? And please provide a brief summary of your proposed solution to address the issue.
I think the 3 main issues facing the city at this time are absolute continuation of our redevelopment project. I also think that job creation is another priority, and neighborhood revitalization. The reason I say that the redevelopment is important is because it creates the jobs. As a matter of fact, my opponent is going to benefit from, some of the things that we've done in our pushing this redevelopment project. So that ties in with the jobs. Neighborhood revitalization is another. Our neighborhoods, some of them are pretty old and are in need of infrastructure improvements and rehabbing of homes. So we have a plan in place to address those needs by, we're talking right now about expanding our CRA boundaries, where the city might not be able to do the work, the CRA could.
Thank you, Councilwoman Davis. Ms. Miller, same question.
Okay, could you repeat it for me, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
Please provide an overview of what you feel are the three main issues facing the city of Riviera Beach and provide a brief summary of your proposed solution or how you intend to address those issues.
One of the top three main issues I feel are accountability, for first of all, improving our image and transparency. Now, with that, it encompasses several different other key factors, which are very important, I'm sure, to many of the residents. But the accountability piece is very important because as we know, we have a lot of money that comes to our city, and a lot of times we're finding that we have a OIG report that just recently came out that says there's over $800,000 that are questionable. And with that being questionable, that means that our taxpayer money are being spent in ways that, we may have to find out what's going on. And with that, I feel that it ties into making sure that we have enough police on force that are able to keep our crime rates low. Our image, we have the media portraying us as, an establishment that aren't able to handle their business. And with that, you have an image that is providing the residents with an issue of not feeling very good sometimes about where they live because of the perceived negative image, because of the information that is being put out there by the media, because of the information that they're being given and they are finding when they come to do these particular audits. And the transparency component comes in where a lot of times we're not finding this information out until it hits the media. So the three main issues I feel are accountability, image, and transparency. Thank you.
One of the platforms of the Unified Group is economic development, and both of your three main issues potentially touch on that. I'd like to ask of both of the candidates, how do you plan to ensure that minority and black-owned businesses are able to participate economically in the redevelopment projects and other expenditure of dollars that the city of Riviera Beach has? Ms. Miller?
Well, I think the first thing you want to make sure that we have is a minority women business enterprise program that ensures that we have a good qualified group of individuals that are able to participate and be able to get the work done. Once those are identified, we want to be sure to put out processes and procedures that are going to be fair, that are going to be followed, and make sure that those individuals that are able to vie for these particular jobs are able to receive those particular jobs. Now, in order to make sure that we receive people who are minority or women, we want to make sure that once they are in position, if we have large contractors that are going to be bidding for this work and receive that work, we want to have something in place where we have a local participation clause in there. And once that's in place, it's important to make sure that it is followed. If it isn't followed, we'll be sure to put some penalties in place where we're able to ensure that we do have our minority women businesses participating. And if not, those penalties will be instituted.
A follow-up question. You are a small business owner.
Yes.
And you were born and raised in Riviera Beach.
Yes.
How do you feel that the city is currently doing as it relates to utilization of black-owned business?
Well, as my opponent did state, that we are one of the construction managers trainees on the Marina project currently. And being that we were provided this opportunity, I would say that that was a great situation for us, but on a daily basis where we've come many years and many times. We did have a board-up contract that we had for about 3 years where we went and provided board-ups for the city whenever there was abandoned homes or situations that occurred, a crime occurred in a building. We were the contractor that they would come to, and we won that contract. But we did notice that, you know, sometimes the procedures weren't always fair. It did take us several months in order for us to make sure that our contract was put into place. So as a small business starting off, it was very difficult for us for a little while, but things did get better, and we are benefiting at this point, a very small part, but we are benefiting on the Marina project.
All right, Councilwoman Davis, I'll go back to my original question. I'll repeat it. What is the city currently doing? I didn't write it down.
That's all right. I remember the question.
You remember? All
That's
right, go
okay.
ahead. Thank you.
Well, currently, the city is already doing the things that you mentioned as far as making sure that small businesses and local minority personnel are participating. Actually, about a year and a half ago, I met with some of the local contractors and introduced them to the owner's rep that we had hired, just so that they could get a pretty good idea of what they needed to do in order to get those contracts. And as we moved along and hired whites, we made sure that whites understood. We very strongly wanted local and minority participation. And I'm very proud to say that my colleagues and I were successful in that event. And right now, our small business enterprises, just for the first phase of the Marina project, is 51%. Our minority and women business enterprises is at 18%. And our local participation is at 36%. So, and along with that, what we did is mandated that an apprenticeship program be placed in the contract, and I believe this is the contract that my opponent's business has, an $80,000 contract to do the apprenticeship training. And so this is what it's all about. You know, this is, you know, when we keep the money flowing within the city, that's what a sustainable city is all about, and that's how we're able to do all of those wonderful things for our residents.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Let's switch gears a bit. One of Unify's other platforms is our schools and the school systems. This was provided to me, but it says that currently some of Riviera Beach schools are among the lowest performing schools in the county. And that's certainly meant as no disrespect to our educators who we know are working very hard.
Absolutely.
But there are 5 public schools in the city of Riviera Beach and 1 charter school. If elected, what do you see as the challenges that the schools are facing, and how do you propose you would address those challenges as a commissioner? I believe we start with you now, Ms. Davis, correct?
That's right. That education has always been a challenge, and I think Riviera Beach schools have faced challenges for a very, very long time. You know, I know of a couple of schools like Washington Elementary, who at one time was an F school or a D school, and an administrator came in and brought it up to an A school, and I think the same thing happened with Mary McLeod Bethune. But, you know, governments can't do everything. It takes everyone doing their part. And as an educator, my hat is off to Ms. Miller and all the educators in the room, because that's a job that I couldn't do on a daily basis. I think it takes a very special person to do that. But I think, you know, maybe partnering. You know, I know the city of Riviera Beach used to have a program a long time ago where we would allow our personnel to go and volunteer at a school to talk about, you know, what they do for a living and that kind of thing. But I really do think that it takes everybody, you know, parents, government, teachers, everybody to do the job of educating our kids.
I'll ask a follow-up question. There is a debate in some communities as to whether the city council, part of their role is to address issues in the school system. Do you think that that part of the duties of a council person is to identify the issues or problems in our schools and try to craft solutions for those issues in schools?
When I worked in the board office some years ago before retiring, I know that Riviera Beach used to have an education foundation. It is one of the things that I plan to do. I've been in talks with Dr. Robinson to start that again. And I think it did work, but somehow or another it just kind of fell apart. But I do think that the city council members have a voice. And we do have a representative that we usually, they either volunteer or we appoint to attend our school board meetings, but their meetings are held on the same nights as our meetings. So it's very difficult, but all I can tell you is that working with Dr. Robinson, I intend to institute the Education Foundation again.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Ms. Miller, you are an educator.
Yes, I am.
And we all know the song, Whitney Houston's song, I Believe the Children Are the Future. It's cliche, but if you're elected as city council person, can you tell us what you believe are the challenges that the schools are facing and what you would do as a council person to address those challenges?
Well, definitely, I'm speaking from experience. It is certainly a challenge, just with the standards being raised, the bar being raised so high this year. The students are really facing a challenge. The teachers are facing a challenge. The parents are facing a challenge. We have many parents that are constantly saying, I can't help my kindergartner do her homework. And it's true. The way that we learned it is much different from the way the students are learning today. And I think that it's going to take for everyone in our city, our employees, our residents, our community leaders, it's going to take for everyone to band together and be able to provide assistance within the schools. One of the things that I know when I used to work for First Union Bank, they allowed the employees to work so many hours or provide volunteer hours, so many hours during the month. We used to go to Lincoln Elementary School, and we provided literacy 101 tutoring with one child. We were paired with one child, and that's who we stayed with for the entire year. And I think that's something that our city could do. I know at one time the policemen were partnering up with Washington Elementary, but I believe that if we were able to invest our time, have our city employees invest their time into our Riviera Beach schools, the more people that get involved, the better opportunities we will have to provide proficiency rates that are at this time very low. So I think we could establish some sort of partnership between the community leaders, the schools, as well as the city employees to be able to get into the schools and assist the students as much as we can.
Thank you. The next question is about city employees, city employees. Given the fact that our employees are our most important resource, what is your plan to ensure competitive wages and benefits for employees of the city? And how do you plan to remain engaged with city workers to address their ongoing concerns? Question is, what do you plan to do to ensure that the city's wages are competitive, and how do you plan to remain engaged with city workers to address their ongoing concerns? Ms. Miller?
Well, I think what we should first of all do is take a look at our salary ranges that we currently have and see how we compare to other cities surrounding us, other cities that look like us. and see where we fit within there. I think, again, going back to what I explained at the very beginning about our OIG report with the $880,000, if we could clean up some of that, we would probably have enough money to be able to provide those competitive wages, so that our employees will not have to seek out other employment outside of the city. We have an issue sometimes in different departments where we're not able to retain very good qualified workers. We have workers that want to stay and continue to work with the city, but because they're not able to feed their families, they're not able to provide and be able to do what they need to do in their household, they seek employment outside of the city. So being able to take a look at our budget, see what type of money that we are squandering, and be able to put it back in areas that will be in our employees' pockets when it comes to those wages. I think that would be very beneficial. In order for me to be able to stay engaged with the employees, attending their monthly meetings, having an open door policy where they're able to contact me at any time, that is certainly something I do currently as an assistant principal. My door is always open, and I do want to keep my ear to the ground of the employees so that I'm aware of what their concerns are and be able to help them in any kind of way I can. Thank you.
All right, follow-up question. Just a minute, Councilwoman Davis. You've indicated that one strategy you would employ is evaluating the budget to determine whether there is waste in the budget that can be used to increase employee salaries. If you're elected council person, what are your action steps that you'd be taking within, we have a question here that says 90 days, but let's just extend it. That's a short time frame. Let's say within the first 6 months to specifically address the budget and wages.
Well, with that, I first of all, I'm coming new into the city as an elected official. I want to sit down with all the department heads, go over our budget, the budgets for each department, and see where it is that we are wasting, as we said before. Being able to compare, again, what are our average rates of spending in this particular area? Sitting down with experts if we need to outside of the city. Maybe we need to bring in an external person to sit down with us and be able to correct some of our spending. I think those would be the first steps of just being able to sit down with everyone, all parties involved, and be able to identify what areas it is that we are not spending in the correct way or the least expensive way. So being able to sit down and meet with the department heads, identify what areas it is that we're overspending or underspending that we'll be able to use for other avenues.
Councilwoman Davis, if I can kind of back into the question, and we'll start with the follow-up question and then let you answer the question. But I want to ask you to respond to Ms. Miller's strategy or action plan for addressing employee needs, salary or wages, and the budget. Give your assessment of our plan and what you would do differently, if anything.
I'm trying to remember exactly what she said.
For the refresh, part of what she said, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Miller, is that she would go in, meet with the department heads, correct? I'm not going to try to rephrase what she said from there. Where there was
waste and where, okay. I think that we do that every year during our budget sessions, which begin in April. We have hired, and we're not a perfect city. And coming from a governmental agency background, I know that in any audit report, there are some concerns. I'm not trying to defend it. I'm not trying to, say anything about it, really. But we've hired an auditor, an internal auditor, which was one of the things that the IG report suggested that we do. And as it relates to, meeting with the department heads and all of that, when I came to the city in 2004, there were very few policies and procedures in place. there were little departmental type thing, but there was no overall policies and procedures. So in 2008, when I was reelected, that was one of the first things that I spearheaded in getting the city to do. Because without those policies and procedures, things fall through the crack. Now, do they need strengthening? Absolutely. However, like I said, it's an ongoing process, and I've mentioned to the city manager that I think either we need to hire an outside attorney or paralegal or someone to work strictly on policy development, and that it be an ongoing process. It is what we did at the school district at one time to get all of our policies and procedures up in place. But when you are starting with nothing, you know, it's an ongoing process.
Okay, thank you. Since we're talking about budgets, and we spoke a little bit earlier
Did you
about...
want me to answer the first part about the employees?
Yes.
Okay. During the economic downturn, our employees had not received an increase in salary since 2009. And some of the tough decisions that we had to make as the governing body, we had to place everyone on that dreaded furlough day, 1 day a month, including our fire and police. And as you know, our fire and police take up 2/3 of our budget. So, you know, there were a lot of unhappy people here, but it was, you know, the goal was to keep everybody employed. So we worked with our unions and came to that agreement to take that 1 day furlough a month, which equaled about just shy of a 5% decrease in salary for everyone. And I'm proud to say that this year, we were able to give our employees 3-year contracts for the first time in a very, very long time. So I think and as far as keeping the door open for our employees to, you know, see, you know, keep our ear to the grindstone, I guess, to see what's going on with them. I've met with some of the union reps, and, you know, I try to stay in my lane. You know, I'm a policy maker, and the employees are under our city manager. So working in labor relations, I know what, you know, I should be doing, but I have no problem meeting with union reps at any given time.
Thank you. Going back to our discussion about budgets and neighborhood revitalization, what are your plans to revitalize neighborhoods in non-CRA areas? And please be specific on what steps you will propose and identify a proposed funding source. Please explain how using the identified funding source may impact city services. Who are we on now? Ms. Miller?
Is it me? Okay.
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
All right.
I'm going to ask my people over here next time.
Okay. As I mentioned earlier, we hired Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council to do a study for us as it relates to expanding our CRA boundaries. Because as you know, the CRA gets TIF dollars and are able to do, they have a lot more flexibility than the city does. But anyway, we are in talks about that. I think our city manager is on board with it, so it's just a matter of time before full implementation, because we have to change our comp plan and send it to Tallahassee for approval, which is going to take us maybe about a year and a half, and it may be 2 years before full implementation. But I will say this to you. I heard a Malcolm X speech, which said basically that when you take your dollars that you bring in and go to other communities to spend your dollars, you're making that other community richer and making your own community poor. And I think this is what has happened in Riviera Beach, because you know, there's really very few places for people to spend their money. And that's when homes become in disrepair, roads become in disrepair, and there is no sustainability. So by doing this with the CRA expansion, we can use those TIF dollars to address some of the issues in those older neighborhoods.
Okay. So is it fair to characterize your plan as to expand the CRA and use dollars from the expansion of that CRA to revitalize non-CRA areas?
Absolutely.
All right. Ms. Miller, what's your plan to revitalize neighborhoods in the non-CRA areas?
Well, as my opponent stated about possibly expanding the CRA, we know that there are certain requirements that have to be met in order for a neighborhood to qualify as a CRA. So we want to be very careful in the way we identify them as such. One of the ways is to be able to revitalize our area neighborhoods, is to be able to look at the areas that we have a lot of blighted, some areas are blighted. We do have some abandoned buildings, we have abandoned homes. Some of those abandoned buildings, we could possibly, as a city, if we're already in possession of those buildings and homes, we could use them, refurbish them, renovate them, and be able to set them up as business suite type situations, where we have our residents, we're able to put our residents into some of those business suites, provide them with an opportunity to start their business. If they have a home-based business, they can come into that particular suite, operate it as a operational business with a office space, with a conference table where they're able to meet with individuals to perform their services. Once we do that, we'll build our community up. Once we can build our community up, then we can allow other businesses to start coming in and have them invest into our community by being able to assist us in refurbishing other buildings that are in our area. So basically, we have a cycle of our residents going back to work. We have a cycle of being able to put them back into the community, bringing more businesses in to provide services which are going to have our residents spend the money here in our city, to keep our money in our city. As my opponent just said, when the money goes out, it takes away from us. So we want to make sure that we have a cycle that takes place that is going to continue to revitalize our neighborhoods.
Mayor, rebut.
Just a minute. To keep it balanced, I need to give because I have a follow-up question for her, and I want to give you the same opportunity I gave Councilwoman Davis, which was I asked for her assessment of one of your plans. So you started doing this earlier, but I want to ask for your assessment of her plan to expand the CRA to revitalize non-CRA. Do you think that's a viable plan to address the issues that exist in non-CRA areas?
Well, it would certainly be something. I know I was just in one of my association meetings just last week, and the CRA provided a presentation, and they explained what the CRA does and how a neighborhood becomes a part of the CRA. And many of the residents sometimes, it was a little sketchy as to how you classified it, because you would say that the area is pretty run down. And for many people, they had an issue with that because it didn't qualify as some of the other areas did. So I would say that it depends on the area in which we're looking at and how it's progressing or not progressing before we decide to move towards the CRA label.
Now starting with Ms. Miller, if you're elected as a city council member, what ordinances or policies will you champion to increase diversity, ensure fair participation, and provide a more responsive environment for minority and women-owned businesses working on city contracts?
I think I kind of alluded to this a little earlier. I think that is, again, my opponent did state that there was procedures or ordinances in place already that kind of address this issue. I know as a small business, we were able to garner the title of a small business enterprise with Palm Beach County, as well as with the school district of Palm Beach County. In Riviera Beach, and actually in West Palm Beach, we were able to garner the small business enterprise label. But here in Riviera Beach, when we started our company, we were unable to do that. So as far as I know, that we do not have a minority women business enterprise program that assists you in being able to make sure we have a diversified group of individuals that are vying for these contracts. Taking a look at our ordinances and policies that are in place. If there are some that says that we have this program in place, then we need to make sure it is being enforced. If it is not or outdated, we definitely want to take a look at it and see how can we get up with the times of the other municipalities and other organizations that are providing these types of services to increase our participation for minority women businesses.
Councilwoman Davis?
Yes, our ordinance, I believe it's simply a local and minority participation ordinance. Currently, it is only 15%, but as I've stated earlier, in the redevelopment project, we have surpassed that number, and you know, we made it very clear to the general contractor that we expect him to adhere to what we put in the contract, and our owner's rep are monitoring that information, and they provide us a monthly report. So as I stated, the small business enterprises is at 51%, the minority and women business enterprises is at 18%. So I think we're doing pretty good in that area.
I have a follow-up question from the audience, and we'll start with you, Ms. Davis. It says, visiting the job sites at the Marina District, this person does not observe people of color visible on the ground working. How many people of color are on the job now, and when we will see more people of color on the job site now and throughout the entire redevelopment process?
I think I heard that question in the same neighborhood association meeting as Ms. Miller. You know, I don't know what a person sees when they go there, but this is the beginning of the project, and it may not be anyone out there at this particular time, but it does not mean that, you know, as the project goes on, that those persons of color will not be there. You know, this is a brand new start, so I think that the numbers will justify themselves, and I would tell them to simply be patient.
Ms. Miller, the Councilwoman Davis has indicated that 51% is given some percentages of minority participation at the city. Do you agree or disagree with the rate of participation of minority businesses currently at the city? And if so, why or why not?
Well, I would have to take a look at the statistics that she is speaking of. I could not base that on just from what she's saying. We can only take what she's saying. But when we're talking about large contracts, I'm not sure that that's what we would see. We may have small businesses, small contracts possibly, that are meeting that statistic that she just named. But when we're talking about $20 million contracts, $5 million contracts, I'm not certain that that statistic follows along with that.
So this is a question for both candidates. Starting with Ms. Miller, does a city that has a majority African-American population and a majority African-American city council need a minority set-aside contract to award contracts to minority and black-owned businesses?
Me?
Yes.
I think we should. Just because we have a majority African-American population and a majority council that's African-American, that does not automatically guarantee that we're going to see this. We have a lot of businesses that come from outside of the city of Riviera Beach that do win these contracts. So I do believe it's important that we keep those policies in place to be able to make sure that our residents who do reflect the African-American race are reflected in those business contracts that are being given.
Councilwoman Davis, does the city have to have a set-aside ordinance in order for the council to award contracts to black-owned businesses?
I believe we do, that it doesn't hurt, absolutely. You know, I think the problem comes, though, when it's not, and I'll speak for me, it's not a matter of my wanting to award contracts to persons of color. It is a matter of those persons who want the contracts. You know, they have to have their businesses in order. And for the most part, some of them don't. And, you know, there are state statutes that and laws that I have to abide by as an elected official. So, you know, as it stands right now, I believe that there are certain of those local contractors who were not able to get bonding, who are working under a GC's contract. So, you know, we fixed it in the contract, so it was made possible for that to happen. So I think that, you know, local contractors and small and minority businesses, they have to help me help them, you know. And I'm more than willing to work with them in that vein.
May I respond?
No, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to move on. The next question is about minimum wage. According to a study released by the Palm Beach Post, Palm Beach County has one of the highest income disparities in the entire country. Please explain why you would or would not support a $15 minimum wage for a $15 minimum wage in the city of Riviera Beach.
Is that me or her?
I think it's you, Ms. Davis.
Okay. I certainly would love to support it. However, being in the position that I am, I always know that there is a budgetary impact. So first, I would have to take a look at the budget to see what kind of impact there is by doing that. So, but I would love to. I was an employee once, and you know, I would love to have somebody give me a $15 minimum wage increase.
So would you or would you not support it?
I would have to look at the budget first. I would love to support it, but I would have to see how it affects our budget.
Ms. Miller, would you or would you not support a $15 minimum wage increase in the city of Riviera Beach? And why?
I would support that, and mainly because if we, again, go back to our OIG report, we do have $880,000 that we have put into areas that may not have been appropriate. And with that, if we just take those numbers, obviously we have to look at our budget. But if we take those numbers and match it up to what's going on and the budget that we have in place, I'm sure we'll be able to find money to put it back into our residents. The most important thing is we'll be building our residents up where they're able to be self-sufficient, where they're able to put money back into our city. Of course, as we bring more businesses into the city, they'll have more money to spend in our community. So again, looking at the information that we've been provided from our OIG report, the 4 OIG reports that we've had in the past month, we should be able to find a way to make sure that our employees are able to sustain the $15 minimum wage.
Councilwoman Davis, follow-up question. Assuming that the increase would be budget neutral as it relates to the city, meaning it would have no impact on the city budget, would you support a minimum wage increase for the city of Riviera Beach? And that's not just city employees, but private employees also.
And it would be budget neutral?
Yes.
Absolutely.
The next question is about law enforcement. Our community, and I mean that in the broadest sense, has been gripped recently in national news media about issues regarding the relationship between the minority communities, communities of color, black community, and law enforcement. This question asks each candidate to name one thing you would do. Well, number one, to tell us whether you believe that there are any issues as it relates to the relationship between law enforcement and the minority community, and to identify one thing you would do to improve that relationship. Ms. Miller?
So your question, you said to identify, are there any issues between the community and the law enforcement? And then what would I do to
Address
repair
them.
that? Well, I would say in any city, you have some people that like law enforcement, you have some people that don't like law enforcement. To be able to say that we have a specific problem taking place in Riviera Beach, it would depends on the individual that you're speaking with. But as a whole, I feel that our law enforcement, because of their turnover, they have a high number of policemen that oftentimes seek other employment outside of the city. They do their 2 or 3 years here, they get trained, they get very good training here in Riviera Beach, and then they go on to other municipalities or the school district. And I think that if we had more seasoned veteran policemen on the force, you would be able to establish a rapport within the community, have more community policing, where they know their mother, they know the father, they know the grandfather, and you're building a relationship. And unless you're able to build a relationship with the community, you will find that you have people that are not so supportive of law enforcement or untrusting of the law enforcement because they have not built that relationship with them. I know years ago, you had policemen who rode around on the bicycles, were living in the neighborhoods, and with that component missing, you do have an issue where you're unable to keep that establishment of a good relationship sometimes between law enforcement and our city residents. But I cannot say that we have a Ferguson issue going on at this present time, from what I'm aware of.
Councilwoman Davis, can we improve the relationship between the community and law enforcement? And if so, how?
Well, there's always room for improvement. Riviera Beach currently has a 67.8% of the black population. And I don't think we share the same demographic with Ferguson. But as my opponent said, that some people like the police, some don't. I don't think there are issues of police brutality, but like I said, that's always a concern. And if that is the case, if it were ever brought forward, we will deal with it. What would I do to improve relationships between police and our residents? I think Chief Williams already holds a Chief's Night Out on Tuesday nights to meet with residents and hear any concerns that they may have. And my door is always open. I get calls sometimes to handle issues, not just with the police, but in other areas too. So I would say that to tell residents my door is always open, and I will return their phone call.
All right, and now moving on to our audience questions, the questions that the audience has been waiting for. We have a number of questions about the utility department, the utility bills, the water bills, is what they're talking about. And from the questions, the majority of them express concerns about the water bills continuing to go up and them not being affordable. And so the question is, how do you propose to address the water utility department, and the constant increase in the water utility bills in the city of Riviera Beach, if you believe there is one.
Okay. Am I first? I am.
Yes.
Okay. First, I think it's important for persons to understand that the utility special district is a separate enterprise account with the city of Riviera Beach. We're currently undergoing a rate study, and we will determine once that study has been completed where we are as it relates to water fees. But I want people to understand also that we have certain covenants and bond documents that we have to adhere to. We have to have the resources that we need in order to maintain our water plant, in order to continue delivering great tasting water to our residents. And I'll also inform you that the city of West Palm Beach had their utility taken away because they were not doing the infrastructure improvements or capital improvements that they needed to do. So with that being said, you know, we also have the sewer part of that where we pump our sewage to the ECR, which is located out there near Southern Boulevard. And 5 cities own that facility. City of West Palm Beach, Lake Worth, Palm Beach County, and Riviera Beach. So, you know, we get a bill from them also. So it's a matter of, you know, looking at the resources that we have, the bond covenants that we have to adhere to, and the covenants that we have to adhere to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Davis. Ms. Miller, do you have a plan to address the increasing water utility bills in the city of Riviera Beach?
Well, what I think we need to do, first of all, as I said before, is take a look at where we're wasting our money in different areas. We want to make sure that we're hiring qualified individuals who are possibly within our building and not have to go outside to hire those individuals to be able to do the same job that we have people that are being overlooked that could do that job. We also have billing that is being sent out of the city. We could possibly bring that back in-house and be able to cut back on some of the outsourcing that we're having to do because of that. I feel that, I know my opponent had spoken before where she said that we were one of the second lowest, but if we're the second lowest, we're still one of the highest. So that doesn't justify that the amount that we're currently charging our residents. I think that we need to just take a look at where we're going wrong with some of the areas and look again at some cities that are very comparable to us and see how they're able to keep their rates down low. Again, me coming from the outside in, as always, you know, you want to do some research and identify ways that I'm sure others are doing it. If others are doing it, let's find out what they're doing and try to mimic some of the strategies that are in place for them to be able to provide the same service. I do know we have a situation currently where we have landlords that are being held responsible for the tenants' water bills, and that is certainly not a way to make sure that we keep our residents happy. So again, looking at strategies in different city municipalities, if we haven't identified a way to be able to lower our rates at this point, maybe we need to now look outside and see how it's being done in other areas and put those strategies into place.
Follow-up question for both candidates. I saw Ms. Davis raising her hand. I'll give you the opportunity to respond and rebut, but
So are we rebutting now? We can do that?
well, I'm asking a follow-up question, okay? I'll give you both a chance.
Okay.
So let me be clear. I'm about to ask a follow-up question. Since Ms. Davis raised her hand, instead of requiring Ms. Miller to go, I was going to give Ms. Davis a chance to answer the question first. Now, if I can, the question is for both of you. I'll start with Ms. Miller since the rebuttal is concerned. The question is this: if you're going
Or
to,
go ahead with the way you were gonna do it. I was just asking. I was just trying to make sure.
well, no, okay, that's fine, but let's understand. I don't want there to be a question about my impartiality.
No, not at
Okay,
all.
because I wouldn't give any candidate an opportunity over the other.
No.
All right? So the question is this. If you were going to look at the budget for the water department to determine where you can make cuts, what's the first line item you're going to look at? Councilwoman Davis.
Wow. I think everything in that budget is pretty important. I don't know right now, and that's an honest answer because, you know, when you look at a budget, there are quite a few line items there. You have salaries of employees, you have capital improvements, you have materials and supplies and benefit packages. So that's a difficult question to answer just off the cuff. I would really have to take a look at the budget.
Okay. Ms. Miller,
Can you repeat it for me, please?
if you are looking over the budget for the water utilities department to determine where there could be cuts, what's the first line item you're going to look at?
Well, again, you want to take a look at each individual item and see where it is that you know, we have some sanitation, we have sewer, we have a number of items that we can look when we're talking about our overall water bill. We may want to take a look at how our sanitation contracts are being done. Maybe we can cut a little money back on that, and that will, in turn, bring down our overall water bill because all of that is combined together. So just taking a look and seeing where can we make some cutbacks at.
Is there a particular line item you would look at first?
Well, it certainly we wouldn't look at salaries, I don't think, off the top, because we're talking about now taking money away from our residents and from our employees. So that would certainly not be the top one to look at. Just being able where we get our services, our resources, our materials, I think that would be one of the things, and see if we're getting the very best for our buck, if we can.
Would either of the candidates support privatization of the water department?
Absolutely not.
No.
Our next question goes back, this is an audience question again, two questions that go back to jobs and community development, which appear to be important issues. This first question references Delray Beach. It starts out with a comment that Delray awarded a prime general contract, awarded a homegrown minority firm with the prime general contractor award on a $30 million plus project using a community benefit agreement. The question is, would you support community benefit agreements in the city of Riviera Beach as part of the development effort? Please share your thoughts.
I'm not familiar with the community benefit agreement, so I would have to first make myself familiar with it.
Ms. Miller?
Yes, I would support that. With the community benefit agreement, it's basically taking your residents. Your residents have an opportunity to give back, be a stakeholder in what's taking place. For example, Delray did have a particular program where it was set up where they were able to, the residents were able to say that they own a piece of this particular project that is taking place. So it's almost as if they're not the lender or the loaner for the particular project, but they have a big buy-in. And with them having a big buy-in, you'll be able to see that they will take ownership of what's taking place within their community, that will filter over into being able to feel a sense of ownership for it and want to see that project thrive, and as well as the upkeep for it. So I think the community benefits would certainly be something I would definitely be open to.
Thank you. We have time for one more question before closing remarks. And the last question goes again to youth. What kind of social program do you plan to implement for youth? And will it include some component of education and standardized testing? Any candidate?
The educator?
Whoever's ready. It's to you, Ms. Miller.
Your turn.
Okay. With the youth, obviously, our youth is very important. With the crime rate that we have currently, we have a lot of our youth being killed. And with that, you want to make sure that they have a lot of positive programs that are in place. As a child growing up here in Riviera Beach, I remember going to the Afro Arts Festival down in West Palm Beach. Unfortunately, it was in West Palm. We had the bowling alley. There were a number of programs. My two sons growing up, they participated in t-ball and football and basketball right here in our city. Many times now, we have a lot of our parents taking their children out to Lake Lytle, to Marisol, to Palm Beach Gardens. I think we need to take a look at our parks and rec programs and see how can we revitalize it, because it is not the same standard of involvement that I remember as my child growing up or as a child of myself growing up here in the city of Riviera Beach. Also putting programs, working along with our schools, because many of our schools have programs already established, like Inlet Grove, where they're helping our students become ready for careers. I think just being able to put in programs in place where we're keeping our youth engaged on a positive track so they're able to give back as productive citizens when they get older. Standardized testing, I think they get a lot of that in school, providing a tutoring component in those after-school programs. Many of the after-school programs currently have that, but the city, can participate in that as well. So anything to provide a positive change for our youth, I think, is the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Davis?
Yes, over the years, the city has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in beautification of its parks. However, I do agree, maybe our Parks and Recreation Department does need a bit of an overhaul. But like I said, whenever we talk about the implementation of programs, whether they be recreational or social programs or whatever, there is a budgetary impact because you need employees to be a part of those programs. So, I think that may be part of the problem at this point in time. But I will tell you this, the city of Riviera Beach is financially strong at this point in time, and I see it getting better. So this is one of the things that I have also talked to the city manager about. We have a beautiful park over there at Callaway Park, and it's not used during the day. It just does not make any sense to me. And like I said, the only two employees that I have is the city manager and the city attorney. And but I have made it very clear to her that, I think we need to do more, for kids, recreational programs in our parks.
Thank you. And now for our closing comments. All right. We have 2 minutes apiece for closing statements for our candidates. Ms. Davis?
Yes, sir. As I've stated to you before, I've lived in Riviera Beach for 24 years. And I will say I'm not what's called homegrown, but I have invested a lot in this community. It is evident in my sweat out there painting the homes of senior citizens. I think we did about 45 homes in in the city. It's evident in the beautification of MLK Boulevard. It's evident in the decorative wall that is going to be built by the Florida Department of Transportation for our residents this coming spring, I think. And it's evident in the beautification of Highway US 1. It is evident in the redevelopment of our marina, whereas other councils have tried. We are getting it done. And there's a lot more to do. I don't have a learning curve, so I'm ready to continue the momentum. We have the eyes and ears of our local, state, and federal officials, and they know that Riviera Beach is here. We have investors who are calling us on a daily basis, interested in investing in Riviera Beach. I think that this team is doing a really good job. I think that I have worked very hard for the residents. And I just want to take this opportunity to say it has been my honor and my pleasure to work for the residents, and I want to continue. So I hope you'll come out on March 10th and vote for Judy Davis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Miller, your turn, and I won't give Councilwoman Davis a rebuttal.
Okay, I'm Kashamba Miller. As you heard me state earlier, I don't want to go down the memory lane, but I was born and raised here, and I've been here for 41 years, if that tells you anything about my age. I have been here, and I've seen so much. I went to school here. I remained here to receive my bachelor's, my AA degree, my master's degree. So I'm sure once I get into this position, there won't be a huge learning curve because I'm a fast learner. I do research, I learn, I read. I don't have a problem with reading documents. So, and analyzing the situation and making the very best decision for those that are involved. I have a personality of where I am very open and I listen to people as I've been out knocking on doors. I've come across many residents that are expressing a need for change, and I feel that I am that person that could bring about that positive change, being able to make a difference in my community. I started my small business here. With our small business, we've put several residents back to work. Again, we're a small business, so we're not bringing in millions of dollars, but anytime we can put local residents back to work, we use them. Have some in the audience at this time. Also, we have a point of being able to give back to our community, and as a small business, we have provided a ADA ramp for one of our senior citizens at no charge. So I've been here, I've been in the trenches, I've been here as an educator, and me coming as an educator, bringing my professionalism, I want to bring back decorum back to our dais and professionalism that we have lacked for a little time now. So I am asking for your vote, Kashamba Miller, on March the 10th. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I got you. All right, thank everybody for their applause. I'm glad y'all thought I did such a good job. And let me call up Chuck Ridley to give closing remarks.
On behalf of Unify Election Committee, would you please stand, please? The members of the steering committee. We want you to join this committee with giving these two very fine candidates a round of applause for coming out and engaging in a much-needed and energetic debate. Thank you so much.
Thank
you. Excuse me, just before you leave, the work is up to you now. You've heard from the candidates. It's now your choice. Will you make a decision to make sure that all of the residents of Riviera join in the old African proverb that the power of the people are stronger than the people in power. On March 10th, please turn out and vote. Boom shakalaka.